Good morning. This is Pastor Jason of Kona Faith Center with a word for today. And the word for today is depend. Depend on the Lord. Asa was a good king. He did what was right in the Lord's sight. Yet, there was a time when Asa went to the world, depended upon the world instead of God, and it cost him dearly. We must learn to depend on God in all situations. I think the core idea here is to completely submit to God's will, not passively, que sera, whatever will be, will be. Not that God is in control, everything that happens is God will stuff, but an active submission. And what I mean by that is laying it, whatever it is, out before the Lord and asking God, what do you want me to do about this? And then only do that. This would be really easy if God gave us an open vision or, spoke, the clouds parted and spoke to us or something like that. But that's not my experience with God. My experience with God is Him speaking to me quietly like He did this morning when I read the phrase, depend on the Lord to help you. Immediately, the new building and specifically the finances for the new building came to mind. My takeaway was to look to the Lord and not to the world or even the Christian's world's idea of how to do that. In the very next chapter, in talking about Jehoshaphat, it said some Philistines and some Arabs brought gifts. And the scripture, the wealth of the sinners laid up for the just popped into my spirit. Depend on the Lord. He will make it happen. Don't try to make it happen myself. It was certainly true that if the Lord does not provide for the new building, it ain't going to happen. It's certainly true that I can't make it happen. But it is easy to think, oh, well, I could do this, I could do that. And this is where we get into trouble, thinking that we can do something, thinking that we can do whatever the world would do instead of doing what God says to do, which is depend on Him. I love what the prophet says to Asa. The Lord searches throughout all the earth for people who have given themselves completely to the Lord. King James, for those who are loyal to Him, to show Himself strong on their behalf, to make them strong. Not depending on the Lord makes us foolish. Now, if we're going to depend upon the Lord, that means we're going to have to receive correction from the Lord because none of us have it totally together. So that means we need to expect some course corrections. And when the course corrections come, we need to respond with a grateful, appreciative, thankful heart, knowing that God's commands are always for our benefit. In other words, we do not want to think more highly of ourselves than we ought to. God knows everything. Let's depend upon Him. Let's ask Him. Ask the Lord for help. Ask the Lord for healing. Ask the Lord for everything. Live the way David lived, dependent on the Lord. Let's not turn to idols. Let's not turn to the world. Let's not ask help from them. Let's ask help from the Lord. Let's depend upon the Lord. Let's obey God and do not live like the world lives. Let a desire to obey God, obey the Lord, develop and grow at the core of your being. And take the Word. Take the Word with you. Teach the Word wherever you go, because I think this is how that desire, that faith begins to arise in our hearts, that faith that declares the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. God will provide. We can depend upon the Lord because He is trustworthy, because He is dependable. I want to challenge you to grow and become strong in depending on the Lord today, because the word for today is depend. God bless. Check in tomorrow.